back. We're off and running. It's the Morning Woodward Show here on the Woodward Sports Network. We got a special guest joining us. He does join us every week, and honestly, I want to keep this thing up because John is the man. The Doc. Welcome to the show, John Macaroon, publisher, All Lions, and host of the Detroit Sports Podcast. How you doing today, John?
Man, I'm great. What are you guys talking about? I'm going to wake and bake after this interview. I'm not waiting for the Lions game. I'm going to go toke up right after this interview.
John, it makes you crack up, man. John, I want to ask you about this game specifically this Sunday, at least to start us off here. We kind of went through some of the injury updates. Jahmyr Gibbs, you got any worry he might miss this game? I know Brian Branch with the ankle I expect to play, but any concern there with Jahmyr Gibbs? You won't see him this week.
Yeah, that injury is always delicate. You know, Dan Campbell told reporters he's day-to-day, and we didn't get a chance to see him out there the first day of practice. I'm going to head out there a little bit later this morning to see in terms of his practice participation. You look at, and it was real interesting too, because last evening I was watching the Brad Holmes interview and kind of watching some things about the Lions on YouTube, and the Inside the Den popped up when they were talking about Jahmyr Gibbs, and they were talking about him as this offensive weapon, this guy that can elude tackles, how they can use him quickly and how they can use him to be a wide receiver, and it just hasn't happened yet. And I look at this Lions team, and you look at it conceptually, it's a team full of grinders, guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, who was overlooked, guys like Josh Reynolds, who was told that he was a back burner guy, would never do anything, and David Montgomery, who wasn't a first-round pick, a grinder. And then you look at the home run swings that the Lions have tried to take with Jahmyr Gibbs and Jameson Williams, and it just hasn't happened yet. I do expect that they will play better for the Lions team, but it's just been real interesting that the upper echelon, high-end talent that is supposed to produce at a high level, it just hasn't happened yet for the Lions. So while it may be concerning if he doesn't get out on the field, the Lions don't need him. The offense is purring. The offense is playing very well, led by David Montgomery. It would just be nice when Jahmyr Gibbs does come for him to have a little bit more of that explosiveness. He's a rookie, but I think him and Jameson Williams can do more to help this team and to help out the offense.
And you said some stuff that when I say I get called a hater, I mean, good thing they picked them both at number 12 overall. But anywho, it's all well and good because they are winning and they are doing just fine. Speaking of potentially winning, John, is there a matchup between the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and Detroit Lions, whether individual or kind of team position-wise, that you think the Lions can exploit this weekend?
Absolutely. I do think that, I was listening a little bit earlier, I do think that the Lions can run the ball effectively. You said it. You looked at it and you said that, yes, the Tampa Bay rush defense is doing okay, but at the same time, DeAndre Swift had an opportunity to rush for 130 yards, and I do think that the Lions are going to look offensively to pound the rock, and I do think they're going to be successful. The Lions' offensive line has been stellar when you look at it, given the fact that they've been nicked up here and there, but collectively that unit has delivered. And you see the likes now of David Montgomery, who is somebody that you can give the football to 30 times and he gets stronger. I do think that this is an opportunity for the Lions to go mano-a-mano against the football team on the road. Dan Campbell must be loving life when you go out and you pay a running back that much and he comes in and delivers, really kind of embodies the identity of a gritty, tough runner. And I think that opportunity to run behind Graham Glasgow, who's playing very well, and that right side has an opportunity to do some things. But I think the running game is going to be key this game for the Lions. And Sam, don't worry about the haters. Everybody that doesn't fall in line with what you're thinking doesn't make them, they have the right to say it. But it's fair to say, I think that Jahmyr Gibbs and Jameson Williams aren't happy with their play. Do you think they're happy to go out there and to see the fact that when Jahmyr Gibbs looks at the film and he sees that he could have made a cut to gain an additional 7 yards, that he's happy? It's going to come, but it's just unfortunate right now that they haven't been the home run threat that we want just yet. I think it's going to happen, but in the moment, I think it's okay to criticize players. They look at the film every day on Monday, and boy, some of those sessions aren't nice when they're getting MF by the coaches to make the plays.
John, I want to ask you about Dan Campbell specifically because we talked about it the other day with him being, a candidate. No one's really been talking about it. Him being the candidate for Coach of the Year. I think right now, I checked some sports books. He's favored at the moment. I want your thoughts on that. He's in that conversation with Mike McDaniel, Kyle Shanahan. Your thoughts on that? Him being in the convo, and maybe do you expect him to potentially win that award this year? Because I think he has a great chance to do so if they keep winning.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is great that this football team now is 4-1. Really good opportunity to take advantage of their next two opponents. They have a chance to return for that Monday night game being 6-1. Man, could you imagine? Yeah, if the Lions end up winning the division, if they end up with 11, 12 wins, Dan Campbell has done what a lot of other NFL coaches struggle to do at times and what Matt Patricia quickly failed at. He's connected with this locker room. The identity of that locker room embodies everything that Dan Campbell is about. You've heard him talking about his football team maturing. They recognize, even with the 4-1 start, they haven't done anything. They recognize that it's all about the next opponent. I had an opportunity to chat a little bit with Josh Reynolds, and I kind of asked him, I'm like, okay, you guys are winning games, but the last couple of weeks, you guys have dominated. You're winning by a touchdown score or more. And yeah, he said, look, we've learned how to win. And now the key to any NFL game is we've learned to make less mistakes than our opponents. And when you can do that at a high level, he said that's when you dominate. And if the Lions continue to have not only these victories, but these dominant performances where they're winning by 7 or more, Dan Campbell definitely is getting a lot of attention. And I think he'll be a strong candidate by the end of the year to be the coach of the year. I think he's probably right now the odds-on favorite to win it.
Oh, yeah, and John, so not a big signing, but a signing the Lions just made, signing Anthony Averett. He used to play over in Baltimore, and I really like what I saw out of him while he was there. What are your impressions for what do you think the Lions will do with him? If you think he's going to see playing time, and if he is, when do you think that'll be?
Yeah, look, Lucas, I'm glad you're hardcore and looking at what the Lions are doing on the practice squad, but look at it like this. The practice squad is a situation in which he'll become acclimated to the system. A couple players that I think will have an earlier edge to get up to the main roster will be Khalil Dorsey, who got out there at practice, and Stephen Gilmore. I think those two guys are a little bit more in line to potentially see playing time because of what happened to Mosley. But I do think that what Dan Campbell has said in regards to the construction of the practice squad is he looks for guys that are going to be hitting the books, going to understand exactly what's going to happen. And then when it's time to call their number, they get out there and they're one play away. And you've seen opportunities for guys from the practice squad to get up there and contribute. But early on, it might take a couple weeks here and there to acclimate to everything going on. Yeah, could he be a call-up, in the coming weeks? It's a potential, but I think that a couple guys are a little bit ahead of him. You always like veterans that have played in the league and things like that. But I think that right now the status quo is pretty decent. And you realize, depth at defensive back, you can't afford too many more situations when you got with the secondary right now. It's looking a little bit thinner, but hopefully Brian Branch is on his track to return. We saw him out there a little bit working out with trainers, but it's interesting to see how how the Lions, when they go out and get these players, they have been able to come out and step on the field and contribute.
John, so I got to kind of look at this from the other way as well. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, believe it or not, could be a tough matchup. I mean, they're both division leaders, and this game will decide who is currently the 3 seed in the NFC. Who would have thought that would happen, right? It's crazy how it all plays out on the field. So is there any particular player or position group or matchup that you think could give the Lions trouble?
Yeah, well, obviously, I look at the defense. Todd Bowles does a good job. Obviously, they have a secondary that plays physical that will be looking to, limit the damage of Jared Goff. Obviously, I think the biggest situation that will allow the Lions to compete and have an advantage is Baker Mayfield. I think that obviously this is another mobile quarterback that's in a good situation that when I asked Dan Campbell yesterday about what's made Baker Mayfield successful, he's indicated a player that, is understanding the scheme and not making mistakes. But you got to remember now, 2 years ago, the Lions did play the Browns and Baker Mayfield tossed the football twice to the Lions. So Aaron Glenn's got experience a little bit looking at planning for this type of quarterback. Basically, it's going to be very much like we've seen the last couple weeks. If you can pressure Baker Mayfield, if you can allow him to kind of be very uncomfortable. I see a couple turnovers coming the Lions' way. I see a lot of pressure. I see Baker Mayfield running for his life this week and an opportunity for the Lions to get a couple extra possessions. But I think the Tampa Bay, what they bring to the table is they do everything well. They just don't exceed. They're not expertise. They don't have expertise in one specific area. I think that they're a good football team, but the Lions have a lot more high-end talent that can make more explosive plays and grind them out. So I think that, yes, it's going to be a good contest, competitive, but this one favors the Lions in a lot of ways.
John, one storyline that I've been trying to follow, but we really don't have all the answers to it, and I don't think it's a big deal, but just in your opinion, because it's something that people want to know, is Broderick Martin, what's going on with him? Is it are they happy with his development? Is there still plenty of things for him to learn? Kind of what's the storyline with Broderick? Although the Lions defense does really need him at the moment. They're, one of the best run defenses in the NFL, but just an update on Broderick Martin.
Absolutely. I was hoping to get that question fired off, but there was a lot of information that Dan Campbell talked about on Wednesday. Hopefully we'll get a little bit more specifics from the coaches maybe today on Thursday. But I look at it like how they've talked about this young player. He's raw, meaning that he needs a little bit more development to get the intricacies of what's going on. And you look at how the Lions view young players. Sometimes there are players that you take early on that you expect to step in and contribute. Others you can potentially take on to develop and store them away and let them learn. Broderick, I think, is developing. I think, man, how great is it for any defensive lineman to match up day in, day out against the Lions offensive line? You're going to sharpen your teeth pretty quickly. But when you look at it, he's got a tough hill to climb in terms of the depth chart because there's two veterans that are reliable in Isaiah Buggs and Benito Jones. So it makes it just tougher for him to see the field. And the Lions, what they do is they don't let you learn on the field. They want players to go out there in practice and make sure that they understand exactly what's expected of them day in, day out. And when the coaching staff led by Aaron Glenn and Dan Campbell feel like, okay, if we call your number and it's time for you to deliver, you're going to be comfortable. And they don't want an individual going out there and in live game action and struggling. So I think it's good. There's an opportunity. And I know it's tough when you see a draft pick kind of developing and being inactive, but the Lions can afford to do that, and that's the benefits of having a front office that can stock a team with a nice balance of veterans and young players. You got a couple young developing players, and one of the biggest positions is at quarterback. You literally are stocking a quarterback. When do you hear the word redshirt year for a quarterback? It's tough, and I think that's an interesting look at the Lions, too, in regards to how they've been talking about Jamison Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs, in that they're patient. They are not going to force feed anybody. They want you to prove that you can accomplish what you need to on the practice field. And when you can be reliable and dependable, you'll get the rock and you'll get game time, playing time in NFL action.
To close it out, I want to ask you, because at least for me, with the whole Jared Goff stuff, and he's been playing, man, and this is the conversation last year. He's having a career year, and people are like, can he do it again? Well, he's doing it again, John. And I want your thoughts on, not that this is a conversation that the Lions, at least Dan and Brad, are probably answering right now, but your opinion on how they should handle the Goff situation with a contract. And my thoughts on it, because it seems like a lot of people want him extended right now. A lot of people are willing to wait. I'm in the crowd, John, where I need to see postseason success. I know it sounds crazy coming from a Lions fan, but to me, that's what the goal is here, is postseason success. Where are you at with the whole Jared Goff stuff? Because Hendon, you don't really know much about. You have a franchise quarterback. How do you think the Lions should approach his contract going forward? Should they wait, or do you think it's better to get a deal done sooner than later? Because, like people say, yesterday's price is not today's price.
Yeah, absolutely. Trying to get me in trouble with a Jared Goff take. Look, I look at what Brad Holmes said, and he talked about how everybody's narrative was lazy about Jared Goff being a bridge quarterback. Well, I don't think it was a lazy narrative. I think that when an NFL coach decides to move on from a franchise passer and brings on what they consider an upgrade, and then they go on to win the Super Bowl, what does that indicate? Yeah, I think Jared Goff can win a lot of regular season games for you. He's a solid quarterback, very much a veteran leader, a player that can exceed at the highest levels. But you're absolutely right. In Detroit, if you're going to fork out $50 million a year, you need to see him when the moment's tough. So how do I want to see it play out? If it ends up being where the Lions win, I want to see the Lions down by 3 in a playoff game with the ball at their own 30-yard line, and let's see Jared Goff cook. Let's see him lead this football team down the field and lead the Lions to multiple playoff wins. If he can get one, yeah, he'll bank in for sure, because he's clearly head and shoulders the best quarterback in the Lions organization. But the caveat that's going to make things so tough is, what happens if Ben Johnson leaves? Can success translate to a new coordinator who basically Ben Johnson tailored his offense for Jared Goff? Goff has limitations. I think that good defensive teams can pressure Goff and make him look a little bit more uncomfortable and bring him down to earth. You saw that little bit of stretch this last couple of weeks where he was throwing interceptions when he was pressured a little bit more. So Goff has a lot to prove. He's got, I think, one of the biggest reasons, and I think one of the greatest chips on his shoulders in the entire state of Michigan, being that if he can succeed, if he can take this football team to the next level and win playoff games, you have to bank the Brinks truck up. Brad Holmes loves him. He definitely defends him all the time, and he's not going to shy away from paying him. But the caveat, Jeff, you're absolutely right. Bring the Lions playoff wins. Regular season success is great. We all expect it. We're all happy to see it. But he's done that before. He's taken teams to the Super Bowl and had some success, even played injured in the playoffs. But when it's time with the Lions to bring home the bacon, he's got to deliver in the postseason. He's got to play well. I think he's got to be a factor as to why the Lions win. You may need Jared Goff to step up his game should you have a minor injury here or there, and you look at young receivers and things like that. You may need Jared Goff to step it up in the postseason, and that's how he'll earn his bag. He has a chance. I would give it more than a 60% chance that he earns the bag because this football team is gritty and they're built to win.
Look at that. Good stuff. Good stuff, John. Appreciate you. Again, you can find John. He's the publisher of All Lions and the host of the Detroit Sports Podcast. And John, this has been a staple segment every single week, man. We got to get you on more often. We appreciate you.
Anytime. Definitely, I'll put down the glorious products and come on and handle business with the fellas. You guys are doing great stuff. It's great to talk about the Lions in a different way these last couple weeks. We're looking at scheme. We're looking at